In the United States, Russia just won't go away. The Trump administration again under fire for alleged contacts with Russia during the U.S. presidential campaign. Now there are calls for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to resign. The Justice Department has confirmed that Sessions met the Russian ambassador to the U.S. twice during the run-up to the election, a point that he did not disclose during his confirmation hearings in January. Leading Democrats now accuse Sessions of lying under oath.
And if there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Well, we did get a comment today from Mr. Sessions. The Attorney General issued a statement saying, "I never met with any Russian officials to discuss issues of the campaign. I have no idea what this allegation is about. It is false." There are now calls for an independent special prosecutor, similar to the Watergate Committee, to investigate the Trump-Russia links. Here's Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The information reported last night makes it clear, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that Attorney General Sessions cannot possibly lead an investigation into Russian interference in our elections or come anywhere near it. With these revelations, he may very well become the subject of it. It would be of Alice and Wonderland quality if this administration were to sanction him to investigate himself.
Alice in Wonderland to Sarasota, Florida. Let's pull in John Schindler now. He's a former NSA analyst and counterintelligence officer. John, welcome to the day. It seems no matter how many claims are made, how many accusations of lying, the Trump administration continues forward. I want to show our viewers what you tweeted today. You tweeted that if his opponents, Trump's opponents, don't get smart fast, maybe we'll see that tweet. There you go. If they don't get smart fast, Trump is set to walk on allegations of shady Kremlin ties. Well, John, can you tell me what in the world does getting smart look like with this Congress?
Great to be here. First of all, the tweet you showed links to my most recent column, which is on exactly the subject at observer.com, so people can see it for themselves there. What I'd say is this. The Trump administration has very cleverly pursued a strategy of doubling down constantly, of deny, deny, deny. And it's to some extent working. Also, Democrats, and I don't put Senator Schumer, who you just showed, in this category, but some Democrats are really being very partisan and looking for perhaps worse than there really is about Trump and the Russians. They're not being very dispassionate about it. I think you need to be. I think in the interest of the country, of the whole Western world, this issue needs to be approached systematically in a disciplined way based on expertise, not lies, innuendo, inferences. You look at the Sessions story today, which is huge. I mean, this man is the Attorney General, in European terms is the American Justice Minister, and he had contacts with the Russian ambassador, which he seems to have certainly lied about when he was directly asked about. Those contacts may have been utterly innocuous. They may be nothing, but we certainly need to get to the bottom of this and see what is really going on here, because this is now the fourth member of the new administration who had some sort of strange ties to the Russians and hasn't been entirely forthcoming about it. So it's not that the Sessions issue stands alone. We have a lot of interconnected problems here that we need to have seriously investigated.
And John, we have reports today that foreign intelligence agencies picked up activity showing meetings between Trump associates and Russian government officials in Europe during the campaign. Why haven't we seen any of that evidence? Because it seems to me that the intelligence agencies really are the ones that could make or break this matter.
Yeah, absolutely, that's true. And Western intelligence, the British and Dutch intelligence services were mentioned in the most recent New York Times story about monitoring of Russian contacts with members of the Trump campaign. Western intelligence knows a lot about this. And of course, you're not hearing much about it because it's highly classified. This is secret information, which is not normally on the streets. It may wind up being on the streets after a big investigation by Congress and others. We'll see. But people have to understand that for European security services, which monitor Russian spies, senior Russian officials, Trump people, members of the Trump inner circle were popping up in these conversations. They weren't spying on Trump's people, they were spying on Russians. And the Americans do this, the British do this, the Dutch do this, the Germans very much do this as well. And there are many Western security services that know pieces of this puzzle. There's one European security service that I've dealt with for years that has a lot of information about this, and I won't name them because they haven't come up in the leaks yet, but I'm sure they will. And when you put this information together, you see a mosaic that certainly raises an awful lot of questions about the true relationship between Donald Trump and his inner circle and Vladimir Putin and his Kremlin. It does not appear to be a normal relationship, particularly when you add in the fact that the U.S. intelligence community has concluded that Russian intelligence, at the behest of Vladimir Putin, last year interfered in the American election at the same time that members of Trump's inner circle are having regular contact with top Russian intelligence and Kremlin officials. This certainly doesn't look good. That's not proof of any guilt, but it certainly doesn't look very good.
What do you make of calls that are coming from the U.S. Senate now for the British spy Chris Steele to come to Washington and to testify?
I certainly think that's a good idea. Mr. Steele, who gave us the famous 35-page dossier with a lot of salacious information about the Trump campaign. There's some good information in there. There's some bad information in there. Some of it's just not vetted. Some of it appears to be disinformation intentionally planted by the Russians, by the way. But I think we need to get to the bottom of what's true in that dossier. What is the provenance of that information? Can it be relied upon or not? And I think the Senate would have to talk to Mr. Steele to get some of that information.
I was reading what you wrote today, and I have to say, it is fascinating the way you bring out a lot of the elements that are a part of this story. And you write that Vladimir Putin takes enormous pride in his seasoned ability to run rings around confused foreigners until they get lost in the vaunted wilderness of mirrors. Is the U.S. Congress right now, is it in the wilderness of mirrors?
I think they're getting very close, and this is why we have to be disciplined and rely on experts, not rumor, and people who aren't very acquainted with this strange world of Russian espionage. It's very easy to start chasing your tail, to use a common English phrase, to go down false leads, to get very confused and not tell up from down. And the Russians, by the way, very much want us to be confused so we don't unravel what's really going on here. So we need to stay out of the wilderness of mirrors. Congress is getting very close to it. A lot of members of the media are already in the wilderness of mirrors. And that's why in my latest piece at theobserver.com, I caution everyone to step back a bit and look at the bigger picture before we come to any conclusions here. This is very complicated and nuanced, and it has to be understood that way. It's not a simple soundbite kind of story.
And John, quickly, before we run out of time, what about the role of leaks in this? I mean, there are leaks everywhere right now. Is that helping or hurting?
Sure. I think it does both. I think, to be fair, the leaks on the intelligence side have not divulged sources and methods of intelligence collection. They've said, we intercepted phone calls between people and the Russians. It doesn't say exactly what. It doesn't give the content of those conversations, because that would be vastly more damaging to secrecy and our intelligence services. Obviously, as a former spy, I don't like leaks, but the reality is leaks are helping Congress, through pressure on the media, to start dealing with the problem of Trump and his Russian connection. And in that sense, I think that does a good thing.
All right. John Schindler, a former NSA analyst and counterintelligence officer. John, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the day. And please come back. I have a feeling we're going to have plenty of reasons to talk again. Thank you very much.